Hey y'all, it's your girl Toyia T, and do we have a show for you today? We are talking today about Black men and boys and their mental health because they always have to be the strong ones. Without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, but before I do that, I want to thank Alpha Wolf Aerials for being our platinum sponsor this month. And I want to thank Crowned by Cece for getting my braids together. We appreciate you, girl. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and welcome my guests in so that you guys can hear all of the great things that they are doing to help with our Black boys to men mental health. Come on in. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
It's good to have you guys on tonight. I appreciate you receiving the invitation to come to talk to us about our Black boys to men mental health. Before we jump into the topic, I want to have you do a brief introduction so that the viewers know who you are and what you bring to the table. And here at the Plug with Toya T, we have ladies first. So, Victoria, I'm going to have you go ahead and do a quick introduction.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Victoria Morgan. I am a mother of two sons. I have a business called New Day Smoothies. I'm all into wellness, and I am here to help people feel better, be better on purpose, in purpose, for purpose. And that is one of the things that I know that I have been called to do is to serve in hospitality. So that is something that I'm building here at my home is a wellness spa.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to hearing more about it, how we can have that self care to take care of ourselves inside and out, right?
That's right.
And whichever one of you guys want to go next, either Aaron or Dr. Nifley.
I go, Aaron Mallory. I'm the founder, CEO of Grow Community. Grow Community, we're a community mental health center specialized in clinical services for particularly Black boys and men. Our niche is that we match young people and adults with Black male clinicians to address the needs that they're dealing with. Our mission is molding boys and healing broken men. Founded in Chicago in 2012, but really hit the ground running in 2020. Last year, we serviced about 744 adults and young people working with their mental health challenges and issues, and really just kind of helping community as a whole. We just opened up in Cincinnati about 6 months ago, and really just looking forward to servicing the great families out here in Cincinnati as well.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here, Aaron. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Nifley, if you could do a brief introduction.
Sure, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Stephen D. Niffley Jr. I serve as a senior associate dean in the College of Medicine at the University of Cincinnati. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neurosciences at UC. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist, specialized in working with Black men and boys, and run our Black male mental health clinic here at the University of Cincinnati. Good to see you all.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being here tonight with us. And as my producer mentioned to you guys, this is a conversation. So we're going to have a good time, introduce each other, and be able to provide some resources to the viewers. So the first question is around your experience with mental health as it relates to Black boys and men. Can you guys give, just some insights into what your experience has been? What are some of the things that you've noticed in our community dealing with mental health?
Well, I can go and say I did have this conversation with my sons because of now that they're of age and their fathers, we was going back over some of the things that they had experienced as children. Their father was um, killed at an early age, and now being fathers is some of them things that you would like to know, but don't have your father there to help you to know. So that is a challenge to both of my sons. If the conversation is what they told me, it's a challenge of trying to explain to your children some of the things that a father should be able to explain to their child. Being that they didn't have their father around is a hard hurdle to go over, even though they're doing what they know to do because of having that relationship with God helps out as well. But not being able to experience it from your father firsthand, it is a difficult situation. So I'm just now hearing that because I asked the question and wanting to know. So some of the
Mhm.
times we don't know how things can affect you until you become a grown man, that these are issues that you do face. And then some of the challenges as a man of color that you have to go out here in society and have to deal with as well.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that, Aaron, right, in the work that you do.
Yeah, so a lot of our work is really centered around inner city gun violence, and so the work that we work with is a lot of young people that are involved in the criminal justice system, whether it's on probation for possession of a firearm, or adults that are coming home from prison. And when I started off in this work, coming out of my master's in social work, I was a clinician, and I remember worked at a community mental health center in Chicago, and I was the only black male on my team to provide counseling services. And so I would get all the black boys would just be on my caseload, right? Just because I was the only one. And, I think one of the things that I saw in the beginning was just the level of just toxic stress that these young boys were being exposed to, ever shot experiences that these boys were being exposed to in their households, oftentimes being in a single parent home, father either incarcerated or not involved, or had been deceased, and just exposure, and then being in these communities of high violence, being exposed to violence, and then seeing how this manifested in the community, but also in the school, where they couldn't focus, they couldn't concentrate, oppositional, hyperactive, right? And be diagnosed as ADHD. But as you pull back the layers, you recognize that it's just a substantial amount of trauma that's just happening in the house, that's happening in the community. And this is their way on how they're responding to these situations. And oftentimes not really being understood, oftentimes not really having anybody to talk to. And also too, like the moms are being overwhelmed, they're dealing with their own trauma, their own stressors. And so really hard to kind of create that support system in the household, because they're trying to figure out as well. And then I would, just see these young people starting off in 7th grade, just kind of having some behavior problems, but then rally into high school, starting engaging with just peers that were deviant, but because of just kind of never having their mental health checked and supported, fall into this pathway of this perpetual cycle on the streets, being locked up, being shot, or just vice versa. So, I think this aspect of mental health is so important in our community, having this conversation about how do we really, think about how do we support boys and men around, particularly black boys and men around getting the mental health support that they need, but also too recognizing how mental health plays a huge part in regards to the challenges we see in the community, particularly around gun violence. We think about the leading cause of death of black men in this country between the ages of 0 and 34 as homicide, right? And so mental health plays a huge component of that. I think oftentimes we overlook that, but I think it's something that we have to address so we can address this underlying issue that's affecting us here in Cincinnati and Chicago, but honestly across the country.
Right, absolutely. And I think a big piece of it is like removing the stigma associated with mental health and getting help with mental health. Like, does that mean that I'm crazy? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're crazy. It means that you're looking to get some help with whatever issue you might be faced with.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's I like to your point though. I think we have to think about how we provide mental health differently, if that makes sense, right? Because some kids they're not trying to come into a couch and sit down in the couch in the office, right? And if anything, they're gonna be like, that's boring. And so thinking about for us, how we build therapeutic rapport in a creative way, from a community model. Hey, that might be, let's go outside and play basketball together for a while. Let's build that relationship, right? Let's play 2K. Let's get on the sticks together, play on the game council, building that rapport. And then as once I got that rapport with you, hey, let me start giving you some nuggets. Let's start working on these things that you're dealing with. Let's process what you're dealing with. Let's provide interventions. But I think too, in our community, we have to rethink for certain populations within our community how we deliver mental health services. Because if we don't, then people are just going to get checked out and they're going to lose interest, right? And the success of any type of clinical intervention with counseling is about that therapeutic rapport. And if that can't be established, nothing else can be done, right? And so just really, thinking about how in our community we can be innovative in that approach.
absolutely. Anything you want to add, Dr. Nifley?
Absolutely. So I just thank you so far to the valuable information that our guests have offered. I'm going to introduce 3 terms very briefly, and then we'll just tie them all together. So the first one is this idea called John Henryism. So you might be familiar with the story of John Henry, who raced against the machine to see who could dig a tunnel faster. John Henry was a black man. He ultimately was successful, but died at the end of that. That's the challenge that many of our Black men are facing. As was noted before, many of our Black men, there's 2 points when we die earlier, between the ages of 18 and 24, when we ultimately die from suicide and gun violence, but also in the ages of 45 to 55, when we die from preventable diseases. A lot of that has to do with the stress that Aaron had mentioned before, which brings me to my next term, which is called race related stress and trauma. So, as we're trying to fight against the machine, which includes racism and other forms of discrimination that are impacted by, we also are just stressed out because we're Black men and Black males and the challenges that come along with that. Which then leads me to my last term, which is this intergenerational transmission of trauma. So many of us have learned how to cope with John Henryism and race-related stress based on the messages that have been passed down to us across the generations. We learned how to be men in relationship to other men who have learned how to be men in relationship to the men that came before them. And so it's caused us a lot of challenges. And so as we think about what Aaron had mentioned and what Victoria had mentioned there, we have to think about how all those impact how our Black males show up, but also how we treat them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that you made a really good point when you think about from which you came, right? So if you don't know from which you came, then you kind of come up with your own story. But if you do know from which you came, then you start to question whether or not you can be better, right? Because it's like, well, I'm just like my dad, or I'm just like my uncle, or whatever the situation might be. And so I think so much of that is just having the opportunity to be able to see yourself as more than what came before you, right? Better, or your own individual self, and having that opportunity to be that own individual self without the negativity that comes with whatever might have preceded you. And so, what, in your opinion, are some of the significant challenges from a mental health standpoint that Black boys and men deal with? We've touched on them a little bit in terms of gun violence that we see on a consistent basis when it comes to homicides. But is there anything in particular that makes mental health more of an issue for the Black boys and men specifically?
Yeah, I would start off by saying accessibility, like the availability of having somebody that looks like a black if a black man want to get counseling and he want to have somebody that understands his experience, right, understands what he's been through, and then he goes through that process. I mean, it's pulling tooth and nails to find a black male clinician that he
Mm,
can connect to, that he can relate to, that he can have access to, just because of the limit, just a limited number of sure black men that go into this space, that go into this work, right? And so I think just one of the challenges is that if somebody even says that they want help, one, being able to find somebody that look like them that can give them the help, or two, like not have to wait in a wait list for a substantial amount of time to be able to get that support and services, right? And so I think there's just a significant shortage of black men in this space who, and not saying that like black women or other people can't provide those clinical services, but oftentimes somebody want to be able to talk to somebody who they feel like they can relate to, who understands their
right.
experience, who can connect with them, right? And so I think part of that is the challenge of not having access, but I would say the other challenge too, though, is it's still a stigma of like, I don't need to talk about any my problems. I don't need to tell anybody what's going on. I can take care of it myself. The way that we raise black boys to men, and kind of teach this macho, take care of it yourself. You don't show emotions. You don't show weakness. And so even the ideal of allowing yourself to be vulnerable is still looked at as a weakness, and to some, to say, hey, very apprehensive in coming in and support. So even for Grow, like the men that we work with, a lot of them are coming home from prison. And so in the beginning, it's that I don't want to be here. Why I got to be here? I'm here because my parole officer is telling me to be here. But after time, when they see they have somebody that they can connect to, they can relate to, like they see the value, and then they stay longer than doing what's mandated. But it's still that stigma of why I got to talk to somebody. This is dumb, right? And we get a lot of phone calls from wives, from girlfriends that's saying, hey, yo, he got to talk to somebody, or this ain't gonna work, and he know like this is it, like he got to
Right.
come, right? Like we get a lot of those type of phone calls, trying to get that help and support, because too, it's still like, I think it's just part of it's kind of how we've been conditioned, or kind of how just over time, what we've been taught to do, and also too not recognizing the trauma that we deal with, but also the trauma that's passed down. Right? I think about like the work of Joyce DeGruy, post-traumatic slave syndrome, right? This notion that she kind of wrote up of like trauma that we dealt with since slavery has been passed down. Thinking about just the power of epigenetics and how even through gene expressions we're seeing how the impact of trauma has been passed down. And I think oftentimes we've like have this lived experience where we don't need it, we don't see it, we don't understand it, we need it because it's been passed down and it's been normalized for so long. These symptoms that we deal with have been normalized for so long that it's like, hey, it is what it is. This is who I am, right? And so really just thinking about how we educate our community and work through that.
Right. And it's like, suck it up. That's been the solution in the Black community, is like, suck it up. You a man up, stop crying, being a little girl, or whatever they say. And in all actuality, there's some, just relief in being able to express yourself and tell somebody what you're going through, so that they can kind of help you with the resources that are available. Does anyone else want to chime in on that, about the challenges?
Well, I think that, being that the challenges is like what you just said, but in finding a cure to that also is being able to be in a safe place or spot of positivity, even when you come into somebody who say, well, I don't know why I got to be here. I always try to come in with a calm voice, but in raising my sons, again, boys to men, I always gave them that opportunity to express conversation in a respectful manner and make sure, not to hold nothing within, but just remember when you speak with respecting your elders. So now we're in a day in society that the younger generation don't see and value the older as much as they should, because it's not being taught. Social media has came in and just taken over. So even now, what I do is anytime I come across any young person, I do always speak. I'm cordial, and I come with a calm voice just to let them know that they're in a safe environment and that they can speak and talk and communicate. And I find a lot of young people that do open up and just talk to me in all kinds of conversations. So I would say in that male's way of also being able to have that open communication. But you do need men there. So again, speaking to my sons about this conversation and the topic, men's groups are open forum. Barbershops are open forums where you can express yourself, but then be able to just say how you feel. And if we get back into caring about one another, reach one, teach one, I think that that's a medicine that is good for all of us, that will keep sickness and diseases away from us, because of all of the anxiety and bitterness and anger. That's what causes diseases. On top of, we'll say that's underneath the food that we eat, but on underneath that, it's all about how you look at yourself, how you feel about yourself, and speaking positivity. So that's what I encourage. That's what I do. I do not speak negative. I keep positivity in my surrounding and just making sure people learn how to breathe, meditate, and be at peace.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anything you want to add, Dr. Neffley?
Absolutely. So, just first, a statistic to support Aaron's point there about the lack of black male mental health professionals. Black male psychologists comprise 0.5% of all psychologists, so there just aren't that many of us. The challenges that are facing Black males in regards to mental health fall in three areas: misdiagnosis, misperception, and mistrust. So, misdiagnosis, misperception, and mistrust. Black males are overrepresented when it comes to diagnoses related to conduct disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and other psychotic disorders as well. we're underrepresented when it comes to mental health challenges related to mood, depression, and anxiety. What we know is that there are two different ways in which we can treat folks based on the diagnosis that they are given. If you are diagnosed with a psychotic disorder or a behavioral challenge, you're more likely to be given more challenging drugs, as opposed to if you're diagnosed with depression or anxiety, you're more likely to be given talk therapy, which has less side effects and other challenges connected to it. So it's a challenge there. Many of our Black males are being misdiagnosed with labels that are unhelpful to them. The next thing is this idea of misperception. So every Black male that comes into my office, the first thing they do is they look around and they say, well, where are the electrodes? Where are your couches? How is this supposed to work? Because they've been taught that going to therapy is someplace where I'm going to spill all of their secrets, where I'm going to shock them, where I'm going to give them a whole bunch of medication. And that's not necessarily how all of this works. And so there's certainly a misperception that folks have about the therapy process that's important for us to address. The last one here is this idea of mistrust. Psychology, medicine in general has been quite harmful to Black males specifically, going all the way back to slavery with labels such as drapetomania to protest psychosis up until the Tuskegee experiment, etc. Psychology, medicine has been quite harmful to Black males, which then means that we have this mistrust of the process. So even though I identify as a Black male, I'm still an agent of the psychology system, which means then when a Black male comes in to see me, they still have a high level of mistrust about, am I going to tell their secrets? Am I going to judge them? Am I actually going to be helpful to them? So when we think about the challenges that our Black males are facing, they're being misdiagnosed with inappropriate labels. They have misperceptions about what therapy looks like. And they certainly have a strong mistrust of what therapy can look like and what agents like myself can help them within those particular systems.
Hmm. And what kind of resources would you recommend? Like, say for instance, they can't get into therapy. And Dr. Nifley, I was going to start with you and kind of make our way back around. Are there resources? Are there different techniques that folks can utilize to improve their mental health if they can't get to a practitioner or a doctor, if you will?
Of course, I always want to do my due diligence to say that although we are few, we are out here. And so we encourage every Black male that needs those services to at least try to seek one of us out because we would try our best to be helpful to you. But there are websites and places that you can go, like there's Therapy for Black Men, which is a valuable resource for folks. There are colleagues like Dr. Earl Turner, who does a lot of work around Black males, who has a very strong presence when it comes to social media. So just like a lot of folks that you could reach out to that can provide you tidbits of information. The last thing that you can think about is this idea of self-care. So if you're unable to reach out and get mental health services, the least that we can do is making sure that we're taking care of our minds and our bodies and our spirits in a way that is helpful for us. And so continue asking ourselves, are we engaging in an intentional effort for self-care that has attention connected to it, and that we have folks that are holding us accountable for engaging in those self-care efforts as well. Audre Lorde has this quote that says that self-care is a revolutionary act. Just taking care of yourself and being good to yourself is a way in which we can take care of our mental health and move us from that space of challenging mental health to mental wellness.
Okay. Anything that you would add, Aaron? Are there any like apps or anything digital out there that they could use that might be resourceful?
Oh, I think if you from the question of like if you can't get access to mental health services or you're just trying to find something that kind of help and support, I think some of the things Victoria talked about, having those talks, right? Just having those group outlets, different group outlets where people are just kind of have an opportunity just to have talk and conversation, maybe just to get things off the chest, definitely can be helpful. Also too, like, tapping into exercise, whether that's, running, working out, getting that heart rate going, it's a lot of pretty cool research around just the impact of exercise and mental health, right? releasing different neurotransmitters that's happening, dopamine that's being released, serotonin that's being released, right? When you work out, just doing exercise activities, right? Just something that elevates the heart rate, get it going, could be definitely a great coping outlet or a coping mechanism, dealing with maybe things that maybe take your mind off of what you're dealing with. Also, too, just diet, kind of what you eat, kind of being intentional about kind of what you eat, and thinking about those aspects as well. A lot of pretty cool research around that too, just how the impact the diet has on individuals as well. And I think lastly too, like if it come down to having somebody just you can talk to, right? Not necessarily to get clinical interventions, but maybe just so you don't just feel isolated, right? Maybe just a trusted person who you could maybe talk to, just to be able just to get some things out, so it's just not festering. Oftentimes, we hold on to all these things, and then we just have these tipping points where we just burst, right? And just having somebody who is a friend that just going to just listen, not going to talk, not give you a whole bunch of advice, just listen. I think it'd be helpful. They got the apps like BetterHelp, where you want to just text kind of what you're dealing with. BetterHelp has become pretty popular of recent, where you're able to be matched with a practitioner, clinician, and they're able to, literally through text and conversation, give you advice or just talk to you as another outlet that you can use. And so that could be another resource as well.
All right. Anything you want to add, Victoria? And we're in our last 2 minutes.
Okay, well, let me just start off saying I was raised by a man, and I understand a lot of men things on a level versus more of man's way of thinking, even though I am a woman. So again, as I said, I can relate to a lot of stuff that the men go through and I see, but where I go back to saying, you are what you eat. So what we're putting in our bodies have a lot to do with what affects us and how we feel. So I will go back to say, just taking care of your mind, your body, and your spirit. And even though we do have issues, we can come away from them. Not that we can't, what we went through in our life is there, but we don't have to stay there. We can make a change. And that's what I can say from a positive way, and everything that I've been through and everything my sons have been through. The statistics say we're not going to make it, but being positive and knowing that you can make it, you can become a better person than what you was yesterday. And that's why my motto and my brand is, it's a new day. Anytime you speak to me, it's a new day. Every day is a new day to do better, be better, feel better, in purpose, on purpose, for a purpose. So I encourage that to everyone.
Absolutely. Let's put up your contact information. New Day, do we have your... Okay, we have her Instagram, New Day Smooth Teas. Yes. And did you have any other contacts? Okay, so there's a phone number. If you want to get in touch with New Day and start to really think about what you're putting into your body so that you're starting from the inside out. Any contact information that you want to give, Aaron? I think we lost him. So he has growcommunity.org.
You can go to our website, growcommunity.org, and our Ohio number is on there. And if you're looking for services, if you know of a young person or adult that needs services, we accept Medicaid and other insurances. Feel free to reach out to us.
Absolutely. And Dr. Nifley, any contact information if folks want to reach out to you?
Sure, absolutely. So you have my website there. I specialize in Black male mental health, but also in supporting folks that have experienced racial trauma. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram, where I'll post helpful information, similar to kind of what we've mentioned here about how to address mental health issues as a Black or brown person.
All right, there you go. There you have it for a mental health clinic. There's the phone number there. And again, we really appreciate you guys just dropping some gems with us tonight. And with this, I'm going to go ahead and thank our sponsors. Thanks again.
Today's episode of The Plug is sponsored by the following companies. At the platinum level, we have Alpha Wolf Aerials. Alpha Wolf Aerials offers unparalleled aerial photography, videography, inspection, and search and rescue services. Elevate your perspective with their cutting-edge technology and commitment to excellence. ensuring high-quality results for all your aerial needs. Connect with them on Instagram at alpha_wolf_aerials and discover the difference with Alpha Wolf Aerials, mastering the sky, leading the pack. At the gold level, we have Millard Advisors. Millard Advisors is a Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area tax investment advisory firm providing tax, wealth management, and payroll services, serving the self-employed real estate professional, investor, and other high net worth individuals located nationwide. If you need financial assistance and don't know where to start, call 859-291-0222 for a free 20-minute consultation. Also at the gold level, we have Life Anew Behavioral Health. Life Anew Behavioral Health is a boutique mental health agency that caters to those who would not normally knock on the door of a behavioral health organization. They strive to take the stigma out of mental health so that more individuals seek the assistance they want and need. For more information, go to lifeanewbh.com or call them at 216-417-1007. At the silver level, we have IDEA. IDEA Cincinnati is a growing community school that prepares students to become champions for a better self, school, and society through the pursuit of a college-going, career, and technical education experience. IDEA Cincinnati is enrolling now for students in grades K through 9 for the 2024-2025 school year. One mission, 2 locations in Price Hill and Woodlawn/Lincoln Heights. Call or text at 513-376-2821 for more information today. Last but certainly not least, at the bronze level, we have Crowned by CC. She is a braider, loctician, and sister lock practitioner based in Cincinnati, Ohio. She specializes in protective styling of all kinds to promote strong, healthy tresses. You can follow her on Instagram at crowned_by_cc. Her booking site is available 24/7. The Plug thanks all of our sponsors for helping us keep you connected.